Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Cliff Notes podcast, where we ask a leader and find their way. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Scott Tarcy, president at CADdesignhelp.com. Hey, Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you for having me on the show. How are you doing?
Thanks for having some time to stop by. How's your year been at the moment? Are you busy on sort of prototypes and design and working with a team there?
I had been a pretty busy year, and things have slowed down. And I'm learning that I need to probably maybe a little too easy for the last few years, and I got a little lazy on some things like writing blog posts, and I think it's hurt my Google rank. Plus, there might be some technical things on my website I got to figure out. So that's all part of the fun of being an entrepreneur.
Right, but let's just get into that then. Where's your background, or what brings you to being an entrepreneur in this space?
Yeah, my background was mechanical engineering in college, and I worked as a design engineer at a few companies. And I just think I'm the type of person who's meant to work for themselves. I'm not really motivated being an employee. Um, I didn't really fit that type of mold, that type of environment. So actually, I worked a few sales jobs after I kind of quit engineering and worked in sales for a while to learn kind of like that side, learn how to sell. And then 6 years ago, I started this business, CADdesignhelp.com, basically doing freelance work, the same as I was doing, like basically 3D modeling that I was doing at a full time job. And I've expanded to other things since then to diversify my revenue streams.
Hmm. And so, what is it that your angle on that? What is modelling and working in this space for you?
Right. So, like, customers might be, I have a customer right now. He's got a medical device. So, I've done a bunch of CAD models for that. I've 3D printed some prototypes for him. um, a lot of inventors, like he's an inventor but also has a business. Sometimes it's just individual inventors. Sometimes I just do AutoCAD drawings. And then since starting this, I realized that these 3D printers have a lot of capability to make end use products. And so I actually have an eBay store, an Amazon store, and an Etsy store where I have a lot of creations that I've come up with that I sell. I just finished an hour ago packing about 30 boxes that'll ship out tomorrow for different sales that I made.
Hmm. So, 30 boxes. That I mean, that sounds good. Is that from your own product, or that with a customer?
Those are all my products.
Okay, and then what sort of size or what sort of detail are you working on with that?
It's all plastic products from, very small, like 1 inch size things to up to about 18 inches. My largest printer is 500 millimeters cubed, so I can make things up to that big. I don't, it's rare I make something that big, but we'll say, up to 400 millimeters is I'll make some products up to that large.
And where are customers coming from? I mean, what sort of markets or what sort of state are their designs, or how far are they into this? Is this early prototypes, or is this something where they're getting parts from you?
No, these are these online sales are end use products. The three main sites I mentioned earlier: eBay, Amazon, and Etsy are the three platforms that I sell through.
Okay, I mean they seem quite sort of consumer focused, or quite sort of newer platforms. Is this something that's expanded into your business, or you just found that there's an opportunity in the space for you to come in and service the market in that way?
Well, I mean, eBay's been around for 20 years now. I think Etsy's kind of newer, but there's lots of things out there that you can create, and if you have a 3D printer, you can make it yourself without having to get like heavy industrial machinery, right? Like getting an injection molding machine that could be $1 million. Like this is much more practical for you know for an individual to take on. At least for me, that's what I did. Um, and like I said, I also make I have clients that need want prototypes made, or they might have their products. Like I've made 100 of a product before,
And then, so I mean, could you give us a bit of an idea? Is what sort of product are you making, or what sort of markets is this?
Yeah, a lot of it is like novelty things, like stuff from like a Pink Floyd. I made like a Pink Floyd wall. It looks like like a brick wall, things like that. I've done I created this shelf that holds. There's like this workout machine called the Tonal that I created a shelf that would hold all the accessories on it. Um, kind of small, like simple, like but practical things um, that people could use around the house.
You've got the whole piece with your website that we introduced at the beginning. Is that where you find that you're getting a lot of the customers, and through these marketplaces that people are coming and finding you, and what they're coming with an idea, or they come with, here's something I've made, can you make it up in a different material, or get some volume going on it?
Yes, both ways. Most people just have like a napkin sketch that I use to create it, create the CAD files, the prototypes. Some people actually have things they made by hand. They'll like mail it to me and I can measure it out, or they'll send me pictures of it. People that typically build their own thing are a little more advanced. I think it's a little bit easier to work for them because they know what works and doesn't. At least they actually build something. People that just draw it by hand, it's a little. Sometimes it can be a little bit far fetched, and we got to figure out a way to make it work.
Hmm. So do you feel you're sort of part of this sort of community of people who've brought engineering into, or sort of back to some of its roots of individual engineers at home producing, or fabricating parts, or working something into the market, finding a right fit for it?
Yeah, that would definitely describe me.
Where's it sort of going with that? Is there a sense where these people are learning from you too, or like are with you for a long period of time, or mostly you're trying out one or two ideas with them as they're finding a market, or a scale for their sales?
Well, usually I just do the project, and I have manufacturing partners overseas. So if they want to get it mass produced, like beyond what we could do with 3D printing, like if you're going to go beyond like 100 units, typically get injection molded. So people that I guess that have the funding or the vision and see it scaling up. We've there's been probably I've probably done work for about 1,000 different people over the last 6 years, and I would say about 10 to 20 of them took it to the next level and sold a bunch, got it mass produced. A lot of people, I think that's they do the market tests, realize that it's really hard to create something that's going to sell. So you got to really know it before investing, and that's kind of like the reality. It's right like if you want to sell something that really sells a lot of it, it takes quite a bit of work. You're gonna have to trial and error. You might get lucky the first time, but I would say that's the exception more than the rule.
And is it from your side some trial and error, that you're producing CAD files for? They just need to be able to get those parts in their hands.
Can you rephrase the question? I'm not entirely sure what you mean.
Okay. I mean, is it trial and error, in terms of what sort of material, or the amount of detail, or the sort of finish that they might need to a product? If they're working with, I don't know, something that might have fastenings or fittings, or something that might need to be put together, or is it mostly that you're just going to know how you want to make that work?
Yeah, no, it's always. I mean, invention and product development is always a bit of trial and error. I mean, now that I've been doing this, for 15 years of my life, I can get it pretty close the first time. But I think it always even someone as experienced as me, it's going to take some back and forth. Typically, a couple of prototypes to get to the end product. A quick example: I've developed this. It's kind of a weird problem. So this guy, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, in the United States, and there's a guy here who works something like some type of not the funeral home, but like the cemetery. And there's a flower holding device that there's like a cylinder that goes in the ground, and there's another one that goes on top, and you kind of twist it in. But these guys that work at the cemetery driving these like forklifts around and all this heavy equipment, they run into these things and break them all the time. And so we're recreating this into like, if you know what a bobblehead is, it's basically we're gonna replace the metal stem that holds like the upper cylinder where the flowers are to the bottom one in the ground. We're going to replace that with a spring so that when the guy drives over it, it just bends over 90 degrees and bounces back up. And this will save them a lot of money because these things are expensive and they have to keep replacing every time the guy backs into one. And so we've gone through some iteration on this project because the first spring was too tight and it wouldn't quite bend all the way and it wasn't quite long enough. And these are only the kind of things that you can really discover by building it and testing it and seeing what happens and then saying, okay, now I realize that like this spring, while we thought this spring was going to be good, it's actually a little bit too short and it's a little bit too stiff. It won't quite flex enough. So we need to go and find a little bit longer spring with like a little bit more flex in it.
Mhm. Okay, that sounds an interesting project. Do you have to work with someone if they're not familiar with sort of prototyping it to help them understand that this is going to be a sort of iterative process or something that they're not necessarily going to get in that sort of first shot?
Yes, I always tell them that up front because if they're a new inventor, they might be a little naive in thinking that it's going to be really easy, get done real fast. Like the more experienced ones, of course, know this because they've been through it. And every inventor is going to take, is going to learn that it's going to take some trial and error to get it perfect. But the new ones, yeah, I definitely say, hey, listen, this is how it goes. I can give them examples like that in the past of how this is just how it works.
Mhm. And then to help the audience understand, or if someone has an idea that they were looking to pursue, not necessarily to specify monetary amounts, but how does that work as a process with you? Is there like a cost per material or per run, or do you say, okay, I think the project's going to be about this price but it might take us one or two iterations, or it might take us a couple of weeks to work this out, and you're going to have to ship that to them, and they're going to have to test it, and or is there an element of getting together with a customer on video or in person to work through that?
It could be either way. I can always give a project estimate up front, but it's always a range because I don't know exactly how many rounds of work it's going to be. I mean, sometimes we come in under what we thought. Sometimes it's over.
Sponsorship of this podcast has been brought to you by Holding Bay, the digital web agency. Holding Bay specialises in working with B2B companies like manufacturers to build better solutions and drive better sales funnels. So if you would like to build a web application or improve your branding and sales funnel, get in contact today. holdingbay.co.uk or call us on 01273 044 019.
That's why I give a range because it's really hard to say. I mean, most projects take, I would say, typically 8 hours the very first round. If it's a product that has a few moving parts that got to fit together, 8 hours design time typically, and then prototyping. I cherish time and material, but depending how big it is, there's I hate to throw out too many numbers, but I would say typically between $50 to $400 for a prototype to get made. I mean, that's obviously a large range, but
Mhm.
just really comes to how big it is and how much time. Because sometimes these products, like that large vase that I had to print for the cemetery project, I mean, it took 40 hours. So 40 hours on the machine is quite a bit of time, and obviously I can't print anything else while it's running. So, all these get factored into what it costs or what I have to charge to do something.
Mhm. And what are you running in terms of machines? Do you have like a like your own shop or your own space and a few machines there?
Yeah, yeah. I work out of my house and I have 7 3D printers. So I have, I'm not sure if the audience will be familiar, but I'll list them out. So I've got um, a a Raise 3D Pro 2 Plus, very large machine. Can print about parts up to about 2 feet tall. CR10 S400, which is the 400 millimeter version. The CR10 S500, which is the 500 millimeter version. The Prusa MK3, very popular machine, a little smaller, but very fast and reliable. Two Ultimaker 2s, which is probably the most reliable, best machines I have, and then a stereolithography machine, which uses a liquid resin. It's a whole different technology, but it's really good for like small, high detail parts. And that's the one that I have is it's called the Form 2. It's 6 7 years old, but it still works good.
And do they all offer sort of different materials and sort of whatever colours and detail that you can work on to let people sort of experiment and see yeah how fine a detail and presumably how much time you're saying that a part might need on a machine.
Yeah, I mean they're all using types of plastics, but some of the plastics are almost rubber-like. So there's quite a different things we can make out of those. And all the machines except the SLA machine can do pretty good detail down to about 1 millimeter. Below that, it doesn't really show up great just because it's the nature of FDM, the 3D
Mhm,
printing. But the SLA machine can make detail up to 0.05 millimeters. I want to say very very small
mhm.
details, but it's much more expensive material just due to the nature of this liquid resin, essentially.
And what so what do you say? What's the sort of difference? It's just the fidelity as to why you might choose a resin.
Yeah, so the trade-off is the resin 3D printer will make very high detail, but the size is limited to about 7 inches, and the material is like 20 times, at least 20 times the cost per volume. It costs like 20 times in volume compared to FDM. So then it's the exact opposite. FDM 3D printers can print much larger parts for much less money, but this very small details aren't going to show up or are not going to show up well. So it's always like a judgment call. A lot of times I'll have a project where I'll print some parts from an SLA machine from the Form 2, and then other parts I'll print um, from an FDM machine. So it really comes down to kind of what we need. And sometimes I'll even split apart and glue it together if there's a reason that we need some small tiny details I can't get out of it, but it would be cost prohibitive to print the entire thing on the SLA.
No, that sounds pretty good. And so these parts, you get them off, and then you're able to sort of ship them off, and people can get that sort of turnaround of seeing that part and getting it in their hand rather than going offshore. Is that you're working with people who are mostly sort of fairly close geographically, or do you get a fairly wide range?
Actually, no, I mean, I would say more often I work with somebody within, the eastern half of the United States or anywhere in the United States for that matter. But I just did a project for a guy from the Netherlands doing making some sunglass prototypes. So when it comes to sunglasses, you really can't prototype the lens. It's a very high specialized process to make the lens of a sunglass or regular glasses. You need entire factory of equipment, but the frame parts are not an issue. And I actually made that on the Form 2 SLA machine because the tiny little hinges would be really tough to 3D print on any of the FDM printers. So I've made two sets of these sunglasses, and it's going to be shipped out to the Netherlands tomorrow. And yeah, it'll probably take about, I would say, 10 days to get to him, depending on like customs and things. So it's really not too bad. And that was the lowest cost way of shipping too. It could have got there faster if you wanted to, pay a little bit more to get it there faster.
And I mean, over the time you've been running, has the volume slowly been going up then, and how much you've been able to work with and produce, and people becoming more familiar, or you've sort of been able to scale up the sort of machines and the reliability on them.
Yeah, I didn't have 7 machines when I started. In fact, I didn't have any. What I was doing was I was just doing the design work, and I outsourced the 3D printing to a guy I know that lived here in the same city as me. But what I realized was that I was giving him basically all the business, and I was like, I could figure. I mean, it took me a while to figure out how to run the machines and learn how it worked, but I was able to figure it out, and so that obviously increased the revenue, different revenue stream too, right? So I have design side, and now I have prototyping side. And at the beginning, I just had one machine, and I don't even use that machine anymore. It was so lousy. And I've bought and sold a couple that didn't work or good or that I just didn't need. So I've kind of over 6 years come to where I have the seven that I have now, and it seems to be pretty good. I mean, as long as they don't break down. I mean, I've learned how to repair them as well because that's just the nature of manufacturing. If you own these machines, any type of mechanical equipment, just like owning your car, things are going to eventually break, and got to figure out how to fix it. It's so funny. There's really no one you can really take these to have them fix it for you. And even if there was somebody, it would cost so much. You'd be better off just buying a new one. A lot of times.
So you said you take this out, and a lot of the business comes through either marketplaces or visiting on your own website. How are you positioning yourself, or how does that work for you? Is that you're putting out your own products and people are then coming back and asking, or are you able to sort of offer the service of sort of custom work?
I would say both. I think a lot of people that need a designer because they have an invention or something that would get made, just simply go to Google, and that's why it's important that your website ranks well. And that's something I'm working on, like, very, like, right now soon, because Google's finicky, and your website might be ranking really good one week, and then they change the algorithm, and all of a sudden you're not, and you have to figure out why. And, like, less people are finding you, and you're getting less jobs. So, but that's probably the most important thing. There are some, like, websites. One I use is called Thumbtack, where people will go in there and put in it like, "Hey, I need this," and, like, professionals like me can respond. But this is kind of a tough environment because it's really competitive. A lot of times you have to lower your price to get the work. It's not an ideal situation compared to, like, someone coming directly to you already, and you don't have to, kind of fight with a bunch of other people to get the business.
Mhm. So there's a portion of it comes from that, but a portion is coming sort of referrals or people coming back to you. Is it, or is it sort of a different split?
Yeah, some referrals. I do see. It does seem like most people just do one project, so they kind of, it's constantly looking for new work, honestly, because they just do one, and you kind of have to be determined if you want to make it as an inventor. You're probably going to have some failures, and if you're going to do one and it doesn't work out and you give up, then, I mean, that kind of is what it is. That's just how it is for a lot of people, unfortunately. But it's just hard. I mean, it's a lot of competition out there, and you got to just kind of keep trying. But I think if you stick at it, you can find something that's going to really work out for you.
And you're telling me before, you also people who are getting into this space, or moving more digital with their CAD and their sort of 3D work, that you also offer some training and helping people upskill in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing this for so long that if I do offer one-on-one training, if someone wants to learn some of these programs and how these machines work, or whatever, anything related to what I do. And I'm actually creating an online course right now just to make that more of, like, an affordable option compared to, like, one-on-one training. It's going to be called the Engineeringpreneur, and I have a domain for that already, and I basically have the course done. So by the time you release this, I'll give you all the links to it, and it goes through everything of, like, how I created this business, how I design, equipment I use. Like, it covers quite a bit. So.
Mhm. And is this a sort of skill that you need to have a sort of engineering fundamentals down, or is this something that someone can come into sort of fresh?
I think it would always help to have an engineering background, but in this day and age, with everything you can learn for free on YouTube, I think you could absolutely figure it out. It might take you a little longer than compared to someone who went to engineering school, but I don't think it would take you years longer. Especially considering the fact that of all the things I learned in engineering school, I really only use 10% of it now. I mean, it's some kind of, like, a lot of geometry and kind of mid-level math. Like, I'm not really doing calculus anymore and stuff like that. And the physics of materials and how things work. Like, if you a lot of people, the right type of person, it's kind of like they had just had that aptitude. I've always had that aptitude of understanding mechanics and how things operate. So I was already kind of leaning that way. That's why I went to engineering school. And but I think anybody that's really interested in it could absolutely figure it out.
Well, it's been great to be able to chat with you and learn more about this space. Have us all scratching away, bringing out our inventive ideas to come over and talk to you and get them prototyped and tested in the market. As the value of an idea is not while it's on paper. It's got to get it in someone's hand and see what the use and the practicality of it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people tell me all the time, "Oh, I have $1 million idea," and I say, unfortunately, the idea is worth about $1. The execution is worth the rest of it. So while the idea is good, it's all the work involved to get it made is where the true value is. And if you're willing to go through it, then you can really get the return back quite handsomely.
If we were able to get in contact with you, what's a sort of a good customer or a good point of contact to learn some more about your business?
Yeah, all my information is on my website, www.CADdesignhelp.com. So just like computer aided drafting for short, CADdesignhelp.com. And my email is info@CADdesignhelp.com. Same domain.
That's great. Okay then. Well, thanks for that, and we'll put that stuff in the show notes, and look forward to catching up again in the future.
All right, thanks, Tristan.
Thanks for joining us again on another episode of the Cliff Notes podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the show or the guest, feel free to check out the website, cliffnotespodcast.com, or tweet us and keep in contact and follow up when the new shows come out by checking the show and subscribing on most of the good locations like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and we'll look forward to catching up on the next show. Thank you again. See you later.